There's a version of you that already exists right now, today, breathing the same air you're breathing. That version wakes up without dread. That version doesn't argue with the alarm clock. That version keeps promises without needing to be reminded. And the only distance between you and that person is not talent, not money, not even time. It's the 30 days you're about to either use or waste. Most people will waste them. They'll start on a Monday full of fire, and by the following Sunday the fire will be ashes, and they'll tell themselves the old lie, maybe I'm just not built for this. You won't, not after this. Because by the time these next few minutes are over, you're going to understand something most people never figure out in their entire lives. The mind is not something you're stuck with. It's something you build. Let me tell you what's really at stake. Because nobody says it out loud. Every single day that you let your mind run wild is a day it quietly trains itself to run wild tomorrow. Your brain is not neutral. It is never sitting still. It is always learning something, always carving a deeper groove into whatever you repeat. Right now, if you're distracted, anxious, scattered, reactive, that isn't just how you happen to feel today. It's a habit being pressed deeper by the hour, like a foot stepping into the same patch of wet cement over and over until the shape sets forever. Wait 1 year and that groove becomes a rut. Wait 5 and it becomes a canyon you can't climb out of. The scariest thing about an untrained mind isn't that it fails you once during a hard moment. It's that, left alone, it slowly and silently becomes who you are. You stop noticing where the fear ends and where you begin. But here is the part that should make you sit up straight. It works exactly the same way in reverse. Every ounce of control you build compounds too. Every calm choice, every kept promise, every moment you don't react, it all stacks. The same law that can bury you can also lift you. The only question is which direction you point it. Think of your mind as a garden you inherited. You didn't plant most of what's growing there. The fears, the doubts, the quiet I'm not the kind of person whose stories, someone else scattered those seeds years ago, a parent, a teacher, a childhood embarrassment, an offhand comment you were too young to argue with, and you've been faithfully watering them ever since without even realizing your hand was on the hose. But here's the mercy of a garden. It does not care who planted it. It only responds to who tends it now. It has no loyalty to the past. For the next 30 days, you stop being the visitor who walks past that garden complaining about the weeds. You become the gardener, the one who kneels in the dirt, pulls what's choking you, and plants something better in its place. 30 days, 9 simple moves. Let me walk you through exactly how it's done, one point at a time, and by the end you'll have a plan you can start before you sleep tonight. 1. Win the first 10 minutes before anything wins them for you. Here's the struggle you already know too well. You wake up, and before your feet even touch the floor, your hand is already reaching across the nightstand for the phone. Within 60 seconds you've swallowed a stranger's outrage, 3 red notifications, somebody's polished highlight reel that makes your own life look gray, and a headline engineered in a lab to spike your fear. You haven't had water. You haven't taken a full breath. And already your mind is borrowed, rented out to a dozen people who don't know your name and don't care about your peace. That's the real problem. The first 10 minutes of your day set the temperature for every hour that follows. Start reactive, stay reactive. Start scattered, stay scattered. Most people hand those 10 minutes away for free, then spend the rest of the day wondering why they feel like they're chasing their own life instead of leading it. I knew a man who spent nearly 30 years starting every single morning drowning in his inbox before he was even fully awake. He told me it felt like being shoved onto a moving train the second his eyes opened, reacting, replying, putting out fires that weren't even his. He said he couldn't remember the last time a day had felt like it belonged to him. One morning, tired in a way that sleep couldn't fix, he made a rule so simple it sounded almost stupid. No screen for the first 10 minutes. Just water, a few slow breaths, and one sentence written on paper about what actually mattered that day. That's all. The first week he felt twitchy, his hand reaching for a phone that wasn't there. But by the 6th week, he told me the mornings didn't just feel calmer, the entire day felt like his again, like he'd taken back the steering wheel of a car he'd been riding in the passenger seat of for decades. So here is what you do, starting tomorrow. Before you check a single thing, you claim 10 minutes. You breathe. You drink a glass of water. You name one thing you are moving toward today, out loud or on paper. That's it. You're not meditating on a mountaintop in robes. You're simply refusing to let the outside world write the first sentence of your day. Because the mind that controls its mornings controls its momentum. The mind that starts the day reactive stays reactive until nightfall. Guard the first 10 minutes, and you've already changed the entire shape of the day before it begins. Do it once. It's a nice morning. Do it 30 times, it becomes who you are. And notice what you're actually practicing here, because it's bigger than mornings. You're practicing the ability to pause before you react, to insert a small gap between the world's demand and your response. That gap is where all your power lives. Most people have no gap at all. Stimulus, reaction, ping, grab, fear, spiral. But the person who can hold 10 quiet minutes at the start of the day is training the exact muscle that will save them at noon when the email lands, and at 3 when the argument starts, and at 9 when the doubt creeps in. The morning is just the training ground. The real prize is the gap. But the moment you win your mornings, a quieter enemy is already waiting for you, and it shows up the second things get hard. 2. Learn to sit with discomfort instead of sprinting away from it. You know this feeling in your bones. The work gets boring, the workout gets heavy, the conversation gets awkward, the silence stretches a second too long, and something inside you starts scanning frantically for an exit. A snack, a scroll, a quick "let me just check one thing." That itch, that automatic reach for relief the instant discomfort appears, is the single most expensive habit you own, and almost nobody names it. Here's why most people fail at this and never even realize it. They believe discomfort is a signal to stop. It isn't. Discomfort is, more often than not, the exact sensation of growth happening in real time. It's the muscle tearing so it can rebuild stronger. But the untrained mind reads that feeling is danger, as an alarm, and lunges for the nearest comfort. And every single time you obey that reach, you're not just escaping one boring moment. You are teaching your own mind a devastating lesson. I cannot handle hard things. Do that 1,000 times across 1,000 small moments and you become a person who quits automatically, not because you're weak, but because you've practiced quitting more than you've practiced staying. I remember a young woman training for the first long race of her life. That first week, every run turned unbearable right around the 20-minute mark. Her legs would beg, her mind would scream that this was pointless, and her whole body would lean toward walking. Her coach gave her one strange instruction. He said, when it gets hard, don't think about finishing the race. Don't think about the miles left. Just stay in it one more minute. Only one. She learned to breathe inside the discomfort instead of fleeing from it, to let it be there without obeying it. And months later, something surprised her. It wasn't just that she could run farther. It was that she'd stopped abandoning hard things in the rest of her life too. The tolerance she built on the road leaked into everything. So here is your move today, and it's small on purpose. Pick one small discomfort and stay inside it 10 seconds longer than you want to. Let the plank shake for 10 more seconds. Let the awkward silence sit without rushing to fill it. Let the boredom exist without your hand reaching for the phone. 10 extra seconds, chosen deliberately. You're not torturing yourself. You are teaching your mind a brand new truth. I do not have to run. Every rep of staying rewrites the reflex. Discomfort becomes data. Boredom becomes patience. And here's the secret buried inside this one. The moment you stop fearing discomfort, most of your bad habits quietly lose their grip on you, because almost every one of them was just an escape route from a feeling you never learned to sit with. Think about it honestly. The snacking isn't really about hunger, it's about escaping a dull or anxious feeling. The scrolling isn't about the phone, it's about escaping the emptiness of the quiet. The procrastination isn't about laziness, it's about escaping the discomfort of possibly doing something badly. Underneath nearly every habit you'd love to break is a moment of discomfort you were desperate to avoid. So when you build the ability to simply be uncomfortable, to let the wave rise and fall without obeying it, you're not fighting 10 separate habits. You're pulling the single root that feeds all of them at once. That's why this one point quietly does the work of 10. And that leads us straight into the very thing those escape routes were built to protect you from. 3. Catch the story you're telling yourself, because your mind believes every word of it. All day long, quietly, beneath everything else, you are narrating your own life. I always mess this up. People like her just have it easier. I'm just not a disciplined person. Never have been. You don't say these things out loud. You barely even notice them passing. But your mind is listening to every syllable, and it does not treat them as random thoughts. It treats them as instructions, as commands to be carried out. Here's the struggle almost everyone shares. Most people believe their thoughts are simply reporting reality, like a neutral camera showing what's true. They're not. Very often they're old recordings, sentences you absorbed years ago from people who never understood your potential, now playing on an endless loop you mistake for fact. And the reason most people never change is heartbreakingly simple. They never once question the recording. They shrug and say, that's just how I am, when the truth is it's just how they've been rehearsing, over and over, for so long that the rehearsal feels like reality. There was a woman who spent most of her life absolutely certain she wasn't smart. A teacher had told her so when she was small, and she'd carried the sentence like a diagnosis, arranging her whole life around it, never applying for the jobs, never raising her hand, never trying. Then one afternoon her own young daughter came home from school in tears because a classmate had called her stupid. And without thinking, on pure instinct, the mother grabbed her daughter's shoulders and said, "Don't you ever let someone else's opinion become who you are." And then she froze, because she realized, standing right there, that she had just handed her daughter the exact advice she had refused to give herself for 30 years. That night, after the house went quiet, she sat at the kitchen table with a notebook and wrote down every ugly belief she'd been carrying. And beside each one she wrote a single question. Who would I be if I stopped believing this? So here is what you do today. Catch one sentence. Just one. The very next time you hear yourself say I always or I never or I'm just not the type, stop cold and ask, is this actually true? Or is this simply rehearsed? Then say the opposite on purpose. out loud if you can, even if you don't fully believe it yet. Because your mind is relentless at collecting evidence for whatever story you repeat. Say I can't and it obeys, gathering proof. Say I'm learning and it obeys just the same, hunting for evidence in the other direction. Same engine, opposite fuel. Change the sentence, and slowly, quietly, you change the storyteller. But here's what most people miss entirely. Even the right story falls apart without the next piece locked into place beneath it. 4. Keep the promises you make to yourself, especially the tiny ones nobody sees. Let me ask you something a little uncomfortable. How many times just this week did you say you would do something, quietly, only to yourself, and then simply didn't? You'd wake up early. You'd read those pages tonight. You'd skip the sugar. You'd start the thing tomorrow. Small promises, broken privately, in a room where no one else was watching. And you told yourself it didn't matter, that nobody noticed. But somebody did notice. You did. And every single broken promise to yourself is a tiny withdrawal from the one bank account that quietly runs your entire life. Self-trust. Here's why this matters more than almost anything else you'll ever do. Real confidence is not built by staring at yourself in the mirror repeating affirmations. It's built by evidence. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, no matter how small, your mind files away a piece of proof. I do what I say I'll do. Stack enough of that proof and something remarkable happens. You begin to genuinely trust yourself, and a person who trusts themselves can attempt almost anything, because they know their own word will hold. But break those small promises again and again and you train yourself in the opposite direction, teaching your own mind to expect your failure before you even begin. That is the real reason most people cannot stay disciplined. It is not laziness, and it was never about willpower. It's that they've quietly, without noticing, stopped believing their own word. I once knew a man who felt like a stranger inside his own life, always planning grand things, never following through on any of them. His mentor gave him advice that sounded almost insulting: make your promises embarrassingly small, and then never, ever break one. Not run 5 miles. Just put on the running shoes and step outside. Not read the whole book. Just read one single page. He felt ridiculous doing it, like it was beneath him. But here's the thing. He never missed. Not once. And within a couple of months, the man who couldn't trust himself with anything had quietly become a man who did, and the bigger habits started building themselves right on top of that foundation, almost effortlessly, because the foundation was finally solid. So here is your move today. Make one promise so small that failing at it is almost impossible. Then keep it. Tomorrow, keep it again. You are not chasing the big result yet. That comes later. Right now you are rebuilding the most important relationship you have, the one with yourself. Promises become proof. Proof becomes trust. And the person who trusts himself stops needing to be motivated, because he has become reliable to the one person who matters most in the entire equation. And understand what you're really doing when you keep a small promise. You are casting a vote. Every kept promise is a single vote for the person you're trying to become, and every broken one is a vote for the person you're trying to leave behind. You don't win an election with one vote, and you don't rebuild self-trust with one kept promise. But you also don't need to win every vote. You just need to win more than you lose, consistently, over time, until the tally tips and a new person quietly takes office inside you. That's why the size of the promise doesn't matter nearly as much as the street. A tiny promise kept for 30 straight days rebuilds more self-trust than a huge promise kept once and abandoned. But reliability has an enemy that always shows up right around day 10, and almost nobody sees it coming until it's already knocked them flat. 5. Expect the dip, and decide right now that you'll walk straight through it. Here's what nobody warns you about when you start. The first few days of any real change feel incredible. You're lit up, you're clear, you can practically see the new version of yourself walking toward you. Motivation is pouring through your veins and you think, this time is different, this time I've finally got it. And then, somewhere around the second week, the fuel runs dry. The novelty wears off. The dramatic early results you secretly expected haven't arrived. And one gray, ordinary Tuesday, you'll wake up and think, what's even the point? Nothing is changing anyway. That moment, that flat, unglamorous, invisible moment where the excitement is gone and the payoff isn't here yet, is the exact place where nearly everyone quits. Not because the plan failed, because the feeling faded, and they mistook the feeling for the plan. Here's the trap most people fall into face first. They believe motivation is supposed to carry them the whole distance, from start to finish. So the very day motivation vanishes, they assume something has gone terribly wrong, that they've lost it, that they were never really cut out for this, and they stop. But motivation was never the engine. It was never meant to be. Motivation is weather, sunny one day, storming the next, warm this morning, freezing by night. If your progress depends on the weather, your progress will always be uncertain, hostage to a feeling you cannot control. What actually carries you through the dip is not a feeling at all. It's a decision made in advance, before the storm arrives. Think of bamboo. For years after it's planted, almost nothing shows above the ground. You could stand over that patch of dirt every single day, water it faithfully, and see nothing, and slowly become convinced it was dead, that you'd wasted your effort. Then, in a single growing season, it explodes upward, shooting toward the sky faster than you'd believe possible. Did it grow overnight? Of course not. It spent all those silent, discouraging years building an enormous root system underground, in the dark, where absolutely no one was clapping. The dip you hit around day 10 is your root season. Nothing looks like it's happening. Everything real is happening. So here is your plan for today, and you do this before the dip ever arrives. Decide, right now, in writing, exactly what you will do when the motivation is gone. Write the sentence down. When I don't feel like it, I will still do the smallest possible version. A person who plans for the dip walks calmly through it. A person who waits to feel motivated gets stopped cold by it. Motivation becomes optional. Discipline becomes the anchor that holds when the wind screams. And when you keep going while the results are still buried underground where you can't see them, you earn something the quitters never get to taste. But you'll only make it through that dip if you protect what feeds your mind in the first place. 6. Guard what you feed your mind as carefully as you'd guard food. Because that's exactly what it is. You already understand this rule with your body. You know you can't eat garbage all day long and expect to feel strong, clear, and energetic. Somehow, though, we completely forget that the mind runs on the very same law. Every video you watch, every argument you get pulled into, every mindless scroll, every conversation, every headline, it's all going in. And all of it is quietly becoming part of the raw material your mind uses to build your thoughts, your moods, your view of yourself and the world. Here's the struggle almost nobody escapes. Most of this feeding happens on complete autopilot. You don't consciously choose it. It's fed to you, endlessly, expertly, by systems designed by very smart people to keep you agitated, comparing, outraged, and scrolling, because your attention is the product being sold. Here's why most people stay stuck no matter how hard they try. They attempt to think positive and grow calm while consuming a non-stop diet of negativity, comparison, and manufactured outrage, and then they genuinely wonder why peace never seems to come, why anxiety is always humming in the background. You simply cannot grow a calm, focused mind inside a chaotic, hostile feed. It's like trying to grow a garden in a hurricane. Whatever captures your attention every single day slowly, invisibly, becomes your inner world. Feed it comparison, and you will harvest insecurity. Feed it fear, and you will harvest anxiety. Feed it possibility, patience, and wisdom, and something entirely different begins to grow in you without you even forcing it. There's an old idea about two forces living inside every person, pulling in opposite directions, and the one that grows strongest is simply the one you keep feeding. Your daily attention is the feeding. I once watched someone slowly climb out of a long, dark stretch of his life by doing one deeply unglamorous thing. He audited his inputs. He went through the accounts that consistently left him feeling small and bitter, and he cut them. He stopped the late-night doom scrolling that left him wired and empty. He took 20 minutes of noise and replaced it with 20 minutes of something that actually built him up: a book, a talk, a walk in silence. Nothing dramatic, no grand announcement, just a different diet, spooned in day after day. And months later he told me his very thoughts had changed, calmer, kinder, clearer, more his own, and he'd never once tried to force his thoughts directly. He just changed what he fed them. So today, do one single audit. Find one input, just one, that consistently leaves you anxious, bitter, or small, and cut it completely for the next 30 days. Then add one input that builds you, even 10 minutes of it. Garbage in becomes garbage thoughts. Wisdom in becomes wisdom out. You are not helpless before whatever your mind happens to consume. You are the one holding the spoon, and today you decide what goes on it. And here's something worth sitting with. You wouldn't let a stranger walk into your home and rearrange your furniture, insult your family, and stir up fear before you'd even had breakfast. Yet that's exactly what an unguarded feed does to the far more important home inside your head, every single morning, and you let it in willingly. The most successful, peaceful people you'll ever meet are ruthless about this in a way that can look almost rude from the outside. They protect their attention like it's the most valuable currency they own, because they've realized that it is. In a world where 1,000 forces are competing every second to capture your focus and monetize your fear, the simple act of choosing what enters your mind becomes a radical act of self-respect. And once your inputs are clean, you'll finally be able to hear the one voice that's been drowned out under all that noise for years. 7. Stop negotiating with yourself every single morning, and let identity do the heavy lifting. Here's a small, exhausting thing that most people do without ever noticing they're doing it. Every morning they wake up and immediately hold a debate in their own head. Should I get up now or hit snooze for 10 more minutes? Should I work out today or just start fresh on Monday? Should I do the hard thing or the easy thing? And every one of those little debates drains a bit of energy from a tank that's only so big, and honestly, half the time, willpower loses the argument, because willpower first thing in the morning is thin and tired. The struggle underneath all of it is this: you are treating discipline as a decision you have to win fresh, from scratch, every single day. That is exhausting beyond words, and it's the reason so many people burn out and conclude they simply lack discipline. Here's the shift that almost nobody makes, and it changes everything. Deeply disciplined people are not out there winning the morning debate through sheer grit. They've stopped having the debate at all, because they don't ask themselves, should I work out today? They think, quietly and without drama, I'm someone who trains. The behavior isn't a choice they negotiate and defend every morning. It's simply an expression of who they've already decided they are. Behavior follows identity. Always. Without fail. A person who believes deep down I'm the kind of person who quits when it gets hard doesn't have to try to quit. It happens automatically. It feels like gravity. And a person who believes I finish what I start doesn't have to force themselves either. It's just what people like them do. That's why truly changing your life is never really about changing your schedule or your to-do list. It's about changing the sentence you say when someone asks who you are. There was a man stuck in the same tired loop for nearly 30 years, wake up exhausted, go to work, come home drained, collapse in front of the television, repeat, until one night he caught his own reflection in the mirror and saw, with a jolt, someone who was surviving on autopilot rather than actually living. He didn't overhaul his whole existence overnight. He made one single identity decision. I'm a person who invests 1 hour in himself before the rest of the world wakes up. Not I'll try to. Not I should. I am. 6 months in, nobody around him noticed a thing. 3 years in, those same people were calling him lucky, gifted, blessed with some advantage they didn't have. So here is your move today. Finish this sentence, and genuinely mean it. I am becoming the kind of person who ... Then take one action, however tiny, that a person like that would naturally take. Don't sit around waiting to feel like that person first. Act like them now, and let the feeling catch up afterward. Because it always follows action, never leads it. Decisions become identity. Identity becomes automatic. Stop negotiating who you are every morning, and you'll be shocked at how much energy floods back into your day. But identity has one fragile point, one crack that can undo everything you're building, and it can strike in a single unlucky moment. 8. Redefine failure before it gets the chance to define you. Watch a baby learning to walk sometime. It pulls itself up, wobbles, and crashes back down. It falls 50 times, 100 times, 1,000 times, and not once, not a single time, does that baby sit on the floor, sigh, and decide, well, I guess walking just isn't for me. It has no concept of failure whatsoever. All it has is feedback. Every fall is simply new information about balance, weight, and gravity. Somewhere in the long stretch between that fearless baby and the guarded adult you are now, that priceless wisdom got quietly stolen from you. Now you fall one time and immediately start building an entire identity around the fall. Here's the struggle you know intimately. You try something, it doesn't work out, and in an instant the story turns personal and permanent. Not that attempt failed, but I am a failure. Not I made a mistake, but I'm the kind of person who ruins things. That tiny shift in language, from describing an event to declaring an identity, is exactly what keeps people frozen in place for years, sometimes for their entire lives. Here's why most people never truly recover from their setbacks. They treat failure as a verdict instead of a lesson. And the difference is everything. A verdict is final, closed, permanent, a door slammed shut. A lesson is fuel, information, an open door leading somewhere better. The exact same event can become either one, and the only thing that decides which is the meaning you personally assign to it. Successful people are not people who somehow never fall. That's a fantasy. They are people who flatly refuse to let a fall become a name they answer to. I think often of a man who lost nearly everything he had, a business he'd built for years, his savings, and a whole identity that had been wrapped up in all of it. And he told me the one thing that saved him from drowning. He said they took the money, and they took the title, and they took the status, but they could not take the person who had built all of it in the first place. Because he separated who he was from what had happened to him. Because he refused to fuse the two, he was able to build the whole thing back again from nothing. That separation is not a personality trait some people are born with. It is a skill, and you can begin practicing it today, in a small way. So here's your move. The very next time something goes wrong today, even something tiny and stupid, catch the language before it hardens. Instead of I'm so stupid, say that didn't work. What's the lesson hiding in it? Instead of I always ruin this, say that was one attempt, not my identity. Failure becomes feedback. Falling becomes data. You are not the mistake lying on the ground. You are the one standing over it, holding the pen, deciding what it gets to mean. And notice how much freedom lives in that single reframe. If failure is a verdict, then every setback shrinks you, and eventually you stop trying at all. Because why keep collecting verdicts against yourself? But if failure is only feedback, then every setback actually makes you more dangerous, more capable, more informed. Because now you're carrying a lesson you didn't have before. The person who has failed and reframed it is not behind the person who never tried. They are miles ahead, holding real information the untested person can only guess at. That's why the people who eventually build remarkable lives are almost never the ones who had the smoothest path. They're the ones who collected the most feedback and refused to let any single fall become their name. And when you finally, truly own that power, you're ready for the last piece. the one that quietly turns 30 days into the rest of your life. 9. Fall in love with the boring repetition, because that's the only place mastery actually lives. Here's the truth almost nobody wants to hear, the one that doesn't sell well and doesn't feel exciting. The real work of mastering your own mind isn't thrilling. It's not a breakthrough weekend retreat or one life-changing video that flips a switch forever. It's the same small acts, repeated on the days when no one is watching and nothing at all feels like it's happening. The alarm goes off in a dark, cold room. Nobody sees you get up. You choose the harder thing anyway, quietly, with no applause. That's it. That's the entire secret, and it's precisely why so painfully few people ever get there. Because most people are addicted to intensity, but mastery is built almost entirely on consistency, and the two feel like opposites. You know the struggle firsthand. You want the dramatic transformation, the movie montage, the single day when everything finally clicks into place and you become new. So you go all in for 3 furious days, burn yourself completely out, quit in exhaustion, and then sit back and wait for motivation to randomly strike again like lightning. Meanwhile, the person who quietly did one small, unglamorous thing every single day, without drama, without an audience, without needing to feel inspired, passed you long ago and never even looked back. A river doesn't carve a canyon through solid rock by force, in one violent flood. It carves it by showing up, the same patient water flowing over the same stubborn stone, day after day after day after day. There was an athlete who trained before sunrise for years, running the same unglamorous drills, the same basic fundamentals, over and over and over. Someone finally asked him if he ever got bored doing the same things endlessly. He smiled and said something worth carrying with you forever. He said the crowd falls in love with the highlights, the dramatic moments, but champions fall in love with the repetition. He understood, all the way down, that excellence is not an event you finally achieve one glorious day. It's a habit you repeat until it becomes invisible. The greatest musicians who ever lived did not play brilliantly one time. They played ordinary scales, the same dull scales, thousands upon thousands of times, until one day the ordinary had quietly transformed into the extraordinary. So here is your final move, and it's the one that carries and protects all 8 before it. Pick the smallest possible version of each thing you're building, and commit to repeating it well past the point where it stops feeling interesting or exciting. And here's the key, the thing to burn into your mind. When it starts to get boring, that is not the signal to stop. That is the signal that you finally arrived at the actual work, the place where nearly everyone else turns back. Repetition becomes mastery. Consistency becomes identity. Don't chase the breakthrough, hunting for it like a lottery ticket. Chase the next ordinary, boring, unremarkable rep, and let the breakthroughs quietly happen to you while you're busy showing up. So here's what every one of these 9 points has been secretly building toward. The single truth to carry out of these 30 days if you carry nothing else. You do not rise to the level of your dreams. You fall to the level of your systems, your habits, your daily identity, the person you actually are when no one is watching and no one is clapping. Mastering your mind was never about one heroic, cinematic act of willpower on your best day. It's about 1,000 invisible choices, each one small enough to seem like it couldn't possibly matter, all of them together quietly deciding who you become. The mind is never mastered in a single dramatic moment. It's mastered in the mornings you protected, in the discomfort you sat inside, in the story you caught before it ran you, in the small promise you kept, in the dip you walked straight through, in the inputs you guarded, in the identity you claimed for yourself, in the failure you refused to answer to, and in the boring, ordinary rep you refused to skip. So let's make it dead simple. So simple you can't forget it. Win the first 10 minutes before the world steals them. Sit with discomfort instead of fleeing it. Catch the story before it runs your whole life. Keep the tiny promises, especially the ones no one sees. Plan for the dip before it ever arrives. Guard fiercely what you feed your mind. Stop negotiating who you are every single morning. Rename failure as feedback the instant it happens. And fall in love with the boring repetition where all the real growth hides. 9 moves, 30 days. One quiet, deliberate transformation that no one around you will even notice is happening, right up until the moment they suddenly can't ignore it anymore. Here's your one call to action, and it starts the very moment this ends, not tomorrow, not Monday. Choose one, just one of these 9. The one that made something in your chest tighten a little because you already knew, deep down, that it was written for you. Do the smallest possible version of it today, before you close your eyes tonight. Not tomorrow. Tomorrow is where these things go to die. Today, because the version of you that already exists, the calm one, the disciplined one, the free one, is not waiting somewhere far off in the future for the perfect conditions and the right mood to finally arrive. He is waiting on the other side of 30 ordinary, unremarkable days that you are finally, at last, willing to actually use. Your future mind is not something the world is going to hand to you. It's something you are about to build with your own hands, one quiet, unremarkable, unstoppable choice at a time. So start now.